Please be seated.
The court is now back in session. We would like to now hand over to the prosecutor to proceed with the questions. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Tan. Thank you for coming back. Just before the break, I intended to start a new topic, but during the break I've been reviewing my notes and I noticed there may be a need to clarify one particular aspect of the meetings you've testified about. You told us and described in some detail the meetings with people from districts, sectors and zones. And you also said to us that that Pol Pot, Nguyen Chia, Khieu Samphan and Ieng Sary worked together at K1. I want to ask you, just to make sure that the record is fully complete, apart from those meetings with the sectors and districts and zones, were there other meetings at K1 where other people met without the presence of people from the sectors and the zones?
Bhagat. Response. No, there weren't. The meetings took place only at one location.
Do you recall discussing with the co-investigating judges meetings that you described as special meetings? Do you recall talking about those types of meetings at K1?
Response. No, I don't. I think I forget about this.
Very well, thank you. Mr. President, with your permission, I would propose to take the witness to a section of his interview document we've already looked at, E3/33. The witness has a copy, and with your permission, we'll project it on the screen. The relevant ERNs in English 00235-130, in French 00235-333 to 334, and in Khmer 00231-803 to 804. And with your permission, we'd like to show that to the witness.
The President, you may proceed.
And if the AV unit could assist us by showing that document on the screen. I might start reading, Mr. Tan, and you can listen to the interpretation or look at the document in front of you, and hopefully it will come up on the screen as well shortly. Question. Did you ever know about other meetings not attended by the sector and zone leaders? Were there any meetings with less than 20 people attending? Answer, I saw that there were. Sometimes there were meetings with only 10 members in attendance or less than 10. I remember Ieng Sary, Nguyen Chia, Khieu Samphan and Pol Pot attending these special meetings. As for the other attendees, they were not from the sector committees or zone committees. They were all people who worked in Phnom Penh, but I do not know their names or positions. The special meetings occurred only in cases of necessity, like resolving food supplies, putting up dams, full stop. Mr. Tan, do you recall making that statement, and is that an accurate description of meetings you saw?
Response: yes, I do, and yes, it is correct.
Do you recall why it was that you described them as special meetings?
Response: I saw about 10 people coming to the meeting, and it was my guess that there could have been a special meeting, the content of which was not known to me.
When you say in the statement passage we just read, when you say that they took place in cases of necessity to resolve food supplies, deal with putting up dams, where did you obtain that information? How did you know that?
Response: I was told by Pang that today the meeting would be convened as a special one, and that Pol Pot, Ieng Sari, Khieu Samphan, Nuon Chea would be the attendees. I don't recollect the other people in the meeting.
Thank you. Now, moving on to another topic, Mr. Tan. You described earlier how you took letters from Pol Pot and Pong at K1 to K7, and then the letters would be sent further from there. Did you ever carry letters from K7 back to K1? Were there such occasions?
Response: I carried letters from K7 to K1 where I presented them to Pol Pot.
Thank you. We'll come back to the letters in a minute. I just want to ask you, were there any telegrams? Were telegrams used by K1?
Response: telegrams were used at K1. However, I do not know where the telegrams would be sent to, although I know that such telegrams did exist at K1.
And could you tell the court where the telegraph office or place from which telegraphs were sent and received, where that office was?
បាទពេលនោះ
Response. At that time, there were letters from Pol Pot sent through telegrams, and Pang was the one who was in charge of this, was in charge of these letters to ensure that they could be sent outside.
Is this the Pong who you described to us earlier, or was that a different individual?
ផង់លោកលែនទូលេខឈ្មោះផង់
Response. The person at the telegram section was called Pong.
So that's a different person from the one we discussed earlier, just to confirm.
Response. Indeed, these are two different individuals. Pang was in charge, overly in charge, when Pong was in charge of the telegram section.
Thank you. You carried letters between K1 and K7. Did you have any responsibilities in relation to the telegrams and the office where Pong worked, the telegram site?
Response. There were some young people who were subordinates to Pang who carried the letters to me, who presented them to Pol Pot.
So I'll try and summarize if I can, and please do correct me if I'm wrong. Pong at the telegraph site would receive telegrams, and then his messengers would bring them to you, and you would hand them to Pol Pot. Is that a correct description of how the telegrams travelled?
Response. Yes, it is correct.
Do you recall how often you received telegrams and transmitted them to Pol Pot?
Response. Sometimes I had to transmit them 2 to 3 times a day.
When you gave these telegrams to Pol Pot, did he ask you to do anything else?
Response. After delivering the letters to Pol Pot, I was also tasked with catering and guarding.
Did Pol Pot ever ask you to carry the telegrams anywhere else? Once he has received them and read them, did he ever ask you to do anything with them, carry them anywhere else?
បាទធ្លាប់ជួយ
Response. Yes, I used to also took them to took them to Nunchia.
And did you ever take telegrams to any other individual apart from Nunchia?
បាទអត់ដែលទេបាទ
Response. No.
You said you received telegrams sometimes 2 or 3 times per day, and then you gave them to Pol Pot. Were all of those telegrams sent to Nunchia, or only some?
Response. After Pol Pot had read them all, they had to be transmitted to Nunchia.
So does that mean that all telegrams that were sent to Pol Pot, you would subsequently carry also to Nunchia? Is that correct?
បាទត្រឹមត្រូវ
Response. Yes, it is.
Do you know whether any of the other leaders received telegrams?
បាទមិន
Response. I don't know about the other leaders.
Thank you. Now, you described carrying telegrams from Pol Pot to Nunchia. Did you ever carry any correspondence from Nunchia to Pol Pot?
បាទអត់ដែលទេបាទ
Response. No, I don't. I didn't.
And where did you deliver those letters to? Where did you give them to Nunchia?
បាទ
Response. I gave them to him at K3 where he stayed.
Coming back to outgoing telegrams, could you describe whether there were any that were sent from K1, that is from Pol Pot? If there were any, how were they sent? Could you describe for us?
បាទ
Response. There were envelopes on which writing were made, but the letters were sent to K1 and K7 indeed.
I'm sorry, I think my question was confusing. I'm just interested in the telegrams, if any, that were being sent from Pol Pot. That is, whether any telegrams were delivered from K1 to the telegram office of Pong?
Response: Yes. Pol Pot telegrams would also be sent to Pong's office.
Do you recall how often that was the case?
Response: Sometimes, on a particular day, the telegrams would be sent once or twice.
Thank you. You've said to us incoming telegrams that you gave to Pol Pot were later delivered by you to Nuon Chea. Could you tell us what happened to letters that came through K7? That is, letters which came to K7 and were then carried to K1 and given to Pol Pot. Were those letters given to Nuon Chea or anyone else?
Response: No.
Thank you. I would like to just return to a few issues which you've discussed earlier today. See if we can just get more information from you. You said to us that when you joined the revolution, you submitted a biography. Was that the only biography you submitted, or were you ever asked to write other biographies at any point?
Response: That was the only occasion I was asked to write the biography.
Thank you. You also talked about seeing the revolutionary flag in revolutionary youth magazines. Could you tell the court where you saw these magazines?
Response: I saw the revolutionary flag and the magazines in 1975, 1976. However, I have no idea as to the content of the magazines.
Thank you. I meant to ask you this question and I skipped it. I apologize. So I will just ask it now. When you said you joined the revolution, is this the time when you joined the party itself? Or or an organisation called the Revolutionary Youth. What, if any, organisations did you join at that point when you joined the revolution?
Response. When I joined the revolution, I directly joined Pang's group.
Thank you. Were you told that you were a member of any party, such as the Communist Party of Cambodia?
Response. At that time, I myself was told that I joined the Youth League and I was member of the Youth League.
Thank you very much. One other question which I omitted to ask you in relation to the period just before April 75. You said this morning that Pol Pot, Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan went to Phnom Penh together. How did you know that they went to Phnom Penh together?
Response. I don't know how they got there. I don't know whether they were there by bus or by other means because I was behind.
Very well, but as you say, you were behind in Kampong Cham, but you knew that they went to Phnom Penh, and all I'm interested in is how did you know that fact?
Response. Pang told me that Pol Pot, Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan accompanied by Pang to Phnom Penh, and I was told by him.
Thank you. Just while we're discussing Pong, I believe you said he was overall in charge of Office 870. Did you ever hear of a man called Suor Vasi, alias Dawn?
No, I don't know him.
Thank you. Now, coming back to Pong, I believe you told us this morning that you attended meetings with Pong. Could you tell us how often those meetings took place?
Pong called upon me to attend a meeting, to receive instructions, and so I joined it. In my group, there were 10 of us. He said we were to convene a meeting and everyone received instructions regarding gardening and planting vegetables to support ourselves.
Could you tell us who attended the meetings with Pong apart from yourself?
At that time, there were those who came from my group and those bodyguards who guarded the outside of the compound.
And just to make sure I understand, was it only heads of units that were called, or was it also other people working in and around K1?
During the meeting, there were both the heads of the group and the members of the group with Pong.
And after these meetings, when you received instructions, were you responsible to pass instructions to any of your subordinates, or were they always attending with you?
My subordinates were also in the meetings.
Were any other topics discussed at these meetings apart from daily work instructions? Were there any other issues discussed?
During that time, there was no other discussion than the one I told you. Pong led the meetings.
But as chief of a bodyguard unit of 10 people, were you given any instructions at these meetings or at other meetings about how to manage security?
At the time, only Pong was there. He was the one who gave the instructions.
Do you mean Pong was the one who gave instructions about security matters? Is that what you're saying?
I am not clear with the question. Can I have it again, please?
Sure. I was just interested in whether you received instructions as to how to manage security at K1, as you were in charge of the internal bodyguard unit of 10 people. I was interested whether you could tell us if Pong was the one who gave you instructions about how to manage security.
Yes, it is correct.
And as far as you recall, were there ever any breaches of security by any of the staff at K1?
There was no such a problem at my place.
Could you tell the court, as far as you recall, what happened to Pong?
Later on, I was at K1, but I cannot recall the year. Pong disappeared. I wondered where could he have been. I did not see him. I just kept my doubts inside me. I did not tell anyone.
And how did you feel after he disappeared?
I had a feeling as I was at K1. I did not know what will happen as my superior disappeared. I felt afraid. He disappeared for 3 or 4 days. I felt afraid, but I had to try to work.
What was the reason that you were afraid by the fact of his disappearance? Why were you afraid?
I was afraid because as Pong disappeared, I would be disappeared as well. So I tried to work at K1. I cleaned clothes, I grew vegetables, I worked as others did.
Did you discuss your feelings with any of your colleagues? Did you discuss your fear with them?
I dare not talk about my feeling. Everything was within me. I dare not say about it.
I just want to clarify one fact, Mr. Tan. But before I do that, let me ask you just one other question. Apart from Pang's disappearance, did anyone else disappear from K1 or from the other units that were surrounding K1?
Besides Pong's disappearance at either K1 or at other units, I did not see any others who disappeared.
When my colleague was asking you questions this morning, you said that before 1975, if people committed misconduct by, for example, damaging property or livestock, that they would be called for re-education. Did that ever happen after 1975?
Either at the place where I stayed or elsewhere when there was a misconduct, I tried to educate those people, telling them that they should not destroy, for example, property or livestock, to educate those people at a lower level for them to understand.
And when you took the position of the head of that inner unit of 10 guards, could you first tell us the specific date or month and year, if you do recall, when you were given that position?
But
I cannot recall it. It was many years ago. If I remember, I will tell you. But it was a long time ago.
Thank you. Was anyone else the head of that unit before yourself? Before you were appointed, was anyone else in that position?
Before I was appointed, well, I do not really understand the question. Can I have it again?
Sure. You were not, you said to us, you were not able to recall the exact time that you were appointed as the head of that 10 guard unit. And I'm just wondering whether before you were appointed, whether there was another individual who was in charge of that unit.
There was no one. Only I who was appointed to control that unit.
Mr. President, out of fairness to the witness, I have a statement of another witness who describes the situation at K1 and does mention Mr. Uon Tan. And following the Chamber's practice from yesterday, with your permission, I would show the witness that statement, which we have redacted. The witness is TCW 620, and that witness has been listed by the trial chamber on a list of witnesses to be called. I just wish to be fair to the witness and put this statement that relates to him before him today so that he can comment on it. The statement is D91/9, and it is also document number E3/104. As I said, I have a redacted version of it. I can also read from it if Your Honours prefer that approach.
You may proceed with the document to be used as a basis for your questions to this witness. However, prosecutor is instructed to provide the hard copy of the document, that is E3/104, to the Duty Council so that he can advise witness as to who gave this statement, and that witness shall not refer the individual who gave the testimony by his or her name.
I can refer the counsel to the relevant page if that is of any assistance. Counsel, the section which we're the section from which I wish to read is at the Khmer ERN 00204-053. Perhaps the court officer can assist in locating that page. Perhaps counsel can review that, and then we can continue on this.
The President, Jury Counsel, can you find any names of the one who gave the testimony in that document? Jury Counsel, Mr. President, I cannot find the name of the one who gave the statement because the names have been redacted. President, Mr. Co-Prosecutor, you are instructed to provide the document with the name to the Duty Counsel so that the Duty Counsel can further advise witness, that witness may know the one who gave the testimony, but when witness answers the question, witness is not supposed to refer to that person who gave the testimony by his or her name.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have an unredacted version as well. We're providing that now.
The President, Duty Counsel, you can just read the document and read out the name for witness and ask him whether he knows the one who gave the testimony, and advise him not to refer to the name when he gives answers to the co-prosecutor. You just want to make sure that the witness knows the person who gave the testimony in that document. So just advise witness of the name of the person and ask him whether he knows the person or not. Yes, Defense Counsel, you may proceed.
Yes, in the meantime, could we be notified of the page and of the paragraph that the prosecutor wishes to read out in a different version?
Yes, Prosecutor, you may proceed. By giving the ERN numbers in the 3 languages to the court.
Thank you, Mr. President. The passages appear in English at 002-04-061 and the following page. In French, they are at 005-24-374 and the page following. And in the Khmer, as I indicated earlier, 002-04-053.
Then you may proceed, Mr. Co-Prosecutor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Tan, I just want to say to you that I'm not seeking to accuse you of anything. I just wish to put this account to you because others may also ask you about it, and I want to give you an opportunity to respond. This individual who worked also in security said the following question: did you ever hear of any arrests of persons accused of treason? To which that witness responded, I did hear about this, but those accused of treason were mostly those with major positions, such as Sam, who was the chairman of K1 before Tan alias Q, who was also the person who announced that Sam had committed treason. I'll just stop there. Mr. Tan, first of all, without mentioning the person's name, the person who made this statement, do you recognize that person?
បាទអត់ស្គាល់ទេ
I do not know this person.
And is what this person states, is it an accurate statement that there was an individual called Sam who was a chairman before yourself who was removed because he committed treason? Is that correct?
President, witness, please hold on. Yes, counsel, you may proceed.
Counsel Angodam. Thank you, Mr. President, Your Honors. Before this document was brought up, I heard the question whether the witness knew the person in the document. So my question is, to which particular provision should we be abided by? If the witness doesn't know the author of the document, so we should follow the previous practice. The document should be removed from the witness, and that co-prosecutor should continue putting questions, but with the paraphrased one. Should we now stick to the same rule or not?
បាទអរគុណច្រើនបាទ
The President, thank you very much, Counsel, for Mr. Ieng Sari. However, your objection is not sustained. The document we gave to duty counsel for the witness was given because we knew that witness has limited knowledge of Khmer language. That's why he needs to be assisted. Co-prosecutor, you may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Owen Tan, as I said, all I wished to ask you is whether that account is truthful, that there was someone called Sam who was the chairman at K1 and that he was removed because he had committed treason.
Response. I think it's correct as what you stated.
Do you recall by any chance this person's full name? And I mean not the witness, but the person who was removed, Sam. Do you know Sam's full name?
Response. No, I don't.
Your Honours, just for the record, I'll indicate there is an individual who appears to match this description, and the name indicated in the S21 revised prisoner list is Ket Thor, alias Sem, K-E-T-T-H-O-R, alias Sem, S-E-M, and he is entry 3391 in the revised S21 prisoner list, the document number being D288/6.68.1. I thank you for your frankness, Mr. Tan, and I wish to ask you just one more question from that that relates to this statement. You said to us that you would educate people if they made mistakes. There is a passage in this statement that I wish to read to you. But before I do that, let me ask, were there ever instances where you removed someone from their station or reassigned them if they made mistakes?
Response. I already indicated that if there were some wrongdoings, people would be re-educated. They would not be removed. They would just be advised on how to move on with daily life.
And now that we have discussed the case of Sem, does that refresh your memory? Was there anyone else apart from him that was removed or that disappeared from K1 or the surrounding offices?
Response. No.
We have limited time remaining before the break, so I might just ask you one more question from that last statement we looked at. And this is really only for completeness of the record, Your Honours. If I could return to that statement, E3/104, the English ERN 00204-061, French ERN 00524-374, and Khmer ERN 00204-053. Mr. President, with your permission, and in the interests of time, I would just read one very brief passage to the witness.
The President, you may proceed.
And Mr. Tan, this passage is as follows. Question: did people disappear from your unit of organisation, and were you ever afraid? And this witness's response was, quite a few people were removed from my unit of organisation, and it was Tan and Sot who decided to remove people in instances when they made mistakes and sent them to work in different locations, like in the factories and ministries. I frequently met a number of such persons who were removed. As for me, I myself never feared arrest. Mr. Tan, as you can see, you're not being accused of any wrongdoing, but I just wanted to make sure the record is entirely clear. This witness seems to suggest that you reassigned people to other units like factories and ministries if they made mistakes. Is that a correct statement?
Matt.
Response: I don't know much about this back then because I personally never assigned people to factories or other locations, because I was tasked with guarding, and when it comes to appointment or management, it was Pang who was in charge, and I was inferior to Pang, and Pang was my superior who led the day-to-day work and to decide on who shall be removed.
And just a couple more very quick questions as we draw to the end. Mr. Tan, you said to us that you carried letters and telegrams to and from Pol Pot. Was there a place at K1 where documents were held, documents used by Pol Pot or others?
Response: with regard to messages and other correspondences, Pol Pot kept the documents by himself at K1.
And do you know what happened to those documents on the 6th or 7th of January 1979, as in at the end of the Democratic Kampuchea regime? Were they left at K1?
Response: I don't know, but I may speculate that the documents could have been kept at K1, no other location.
Thank you very much, Owen Tan, for your comprehensive responses. And thank you, Your Honours. We have no further questions for the witness.
The President. Thank you, Co-Prosecutor, and thank you, Mr. Witness. It is now appropriate time for adjournment. Then we will adjourn for 20 minutes. The next session will be resumed by 3 o'clock. Court officer is now instructed to ensure that Mr. Witness and his duty counsel be well accommodated during the break and have them returned to the courtroom by 3 o'clock.
Ground job.